Today we're going to be talking about archery, and more specifically, the Diamond Infinite Edge line of bows. We'll show you how the adjustability on these bows makes them a perfect fit for kids and young shooters. Stay tuned. Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So as I mentioned, today we're talking about the Diamond Infinite Edge series of compound bows. And we're going to show you today why the adjustability on these makes them a perfect fit for those young shooters. So this particular bow belongs to my youngest son, John, who's 10 years old. And the one behind me on the wall belongs to Lee, who's 14. And we got these bows for them each when they were around 7 years old, which is a great age to start kids shooting at. But on these bows, when you buy them as a package, it really comes with everything you need right out of the box. So it came with the wrist sling, the stabilizer, fiber optic sight pins there, a whisker biscuit style arrow rest. It even came with the release loop already on the string, came with a release, came with a few arrows and a case. So essentially it had everything they need right out of the box. When we got this for John just a few years ago, I think it was right about $400. But again, the biggest selling point of these bows that Bowtech and Diamond were addressing is trying to build a bow that younger shooters don't outgrow right away. So obviously these kids grow really quickly and they can outgrow a bow exceptionally fast. So with this one, it has enough adjustability that they can shoot it from a really young age all the way to an adult. So these bows can go from 8 pounds of draw weight, which is really light, and only 13 inches of draw length, all the way up to 31 inches of draw length and 70 pounds of draw weight. So it is truly a bow that they can shoot from a very young age all the way to an adult. So on that adjustability, how you adjust these bows, we'll kind of zoom in here and show you. So it's a typical compound dual cam bow type setup, but on the cam, you'll notice there's this adjustment piece and there's all these numbers on here, and there's a small little metal arrow in there with like the infinity symbol on it. And so right now it's pointing up here. This bow is essentially set at the adjustment of 9.5. So if I look in the owner's manual at 9.5, that tells me that right now the way this bow is set up is about 22 inches of draw length and a maximum draw weight of 54 pounds. So it's been a little bit since John has shot. So we're going to have him shoot a few arrows and see how it fits him. I think right now this one, even though it has a maximum draw weight of, I said 54 pounds, this is probably set somewhere in 50% range of that. So it's 22 to 24 pounds. Pretty light draw weight. I think he's going to be able to take another turn or two on the limbs and increase that draw weight a little bit. So we'll shoot a few arrows and then we'll come back in here and I'll show you how we can adjust the draw length on this bow. Okay, we stepped out here in the shop and we're going to have John draw his bow back here. We'll kind of evaluate his draw length to see what, if anything, we need to add to it, and then also kind of see how the draw weight feels for him, because if we're making an adjustment on it, this is a good time to do that as well. So go ahead and draw it back and just kind of hold it at full draw for me there, John. Okay, so he's got his elbow bent about right for there, but we can definitely see it looks like he's pulling up against the wall, so we definitely need to add some length to that. Just looking at it, it feels like he's kind of stretching it, so probably 1.5 inches or so. If you want, go ahead and take a shot there, John. Not too bad. So we're going to step back in here and we'll show you quick how to add some draw length to John's bow here. Okay, so we just stepped back in here and put his bow on the bench. So right now at the 9.5 setting, his draw length is about 22 inches. And it looks like if we go to the 8.5 setting, that'll add a full inch to his draw length of 23. So that's what we're going to shoot for. I'll show you how we do this. The nice thing is on these is we don't need a bow press to make these settings. Essentially what we're doing right now, there's nothing under tension. So I am just going to back these two Allen screws out real quick. And we'll need to do this on both the top and the bottom cams. Okay, so now you can kind of see this is essentially just, and this is actually like a plastic composite stopper, but essentially what happens is when they're drawing the bow, and you know, this is attached to the cam, but as they draw, this starts rotating and it'll actually come back and hit one of these cables, and that's what stops it from drawing back farther. So he was at a 9.5 right there. So what we're going to do, we needed to go to an 8.5. So what we're going to do, so we were at 9.5, so we're going to run this up to, and again, what we're trying to do is look at that infinite symbol there. And so right now at those screw holes, looks like I'm more at an 8, so I need to go just a little bit. So I've got my Allen wrench on the 8.5. Looks like it lines up perfectly there. So these are the 2 screw holes that I need to put it back in to get our 8.5 setting. So we'll start with this one. And it's helpful to not tighten that first one down too much, because right now I've still got some play in there. Helps me get the second screw started a little easier. And now that I've got both of them in there, I'll give it, snug it up good here. There we go. And it looks like we stayed on our 8.5. So now we'll just slide down here and do the same thing. So again, we were at the 9.5 setting. We're going to need to move it up to the 8.5 setting. Okay. 8.5. Looks like that's what's helpful, to just use your wrench to kind of guide that. That looks right. And we'll give them a little torque. Okay, looks like we stayed on our 8.5 setting. So now he should have a full extra inch of draw length on that bow. But while we got it here, it looked like he was able to pull it back pretty easily. I don't want to add too much weight, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a half a turn to each one of the limbs, just to kind of, since it was at a weight that was working for him before. You don't want to overload them, but it's good to, anytime you can, try to get a little bit more weight on there. It'll help the bow perform a little bit better. So on these, usually I try to insert my Allen wrench so it is parallel with the limb. That way I know when I've made a full rotation, or a half rotation in this case. So right now I've got it in there. It's fairly close to parallel with the limb, so I need to go 180 degrees to get a half rotation here. So, and again, it's just like anything, I'm turning it to the right when I want to tighten it. And so as we tighten this down, that's adding poundage to the limbs, versus if I go to left, it's going to loosen it. So I'm going to flip this around. We'll do the same thing to the bottom limb here. So we're fairly parallel to the limb. I'll put a half a turn in there. Okay, and then I'm just going to do a quick check here. So I've got a scale. This will tell us kind of what the draw weight is on here, just to kind of give us an idea. So I'll just pull this back quick, get to full draw and let it down. And it looks like right now that's about 23 to 24 pounds of draw weight on there. So that should work pretty well for him. One thing to note, anytime you're adjusting the draw length on these, the peep sights, it's got this little peep sight in the string here. You may have to fidget with that a little bit. And also the string is going to stretch as well as you lengthen these and shoot more often too. So just remember that you might have to adjust the peep sight a little bit as you continue to adjust the draw length. So let's step out here and see how it shoots for John now. Okay, we step back out here after making the adjustments on John's bow. So we're going to have him get back to full draw here and see how the draw length adjustment went, and then also the draw weight. So one thing to note too, especially with kids and even adults, when they're drawing back, make sure you always have your trigger finger behind the trigger when you're drawing back. That way you don't actually trip the trigger unintentionally when you're drawing back. Because especially if we added draw weight, and if it's tough for them, that could be a time when they might accidentally hit that trigger. So go ahead and draw back to full draw there. Okay, the draw length definitely looks better. Find your anchor point there against your face. Can you see through the peep sight okay? Okay, go ahead and put your top pin right on there and just gently squeeze the trigger. How'd that feel?
Good.
Okay, you want to shoot another one?
Sure.
There you go. Could you tell we added a little bit of weight, or is it pretty much the same? Pretty, not bad? Okay. So this is an instance where it looks like his peep sight's wanting to turn that way, so I'm just gonna adjust it on the fly for him here. There you go. And we can kind of train that peep a little bit too as we go along here. Okay, make sure you follow through. All right, let's, I'm trying to figure out here which way we need to go on your peep. Try that. Is it off? There you go. Nice smooth release on the trigger, just, there you go. Okay. Well, we'll shoot a few more through there and see if we need to do any more adjustments, but it looks like we've got a good place for him to start practicing now. Okay, we've got Lee out here. He's going to try shooting a few arrows through his bow to see if we need to adjust his draw length or draw weight at all. So with that, we'll have you shoot a few arrows here and kind of see how it goes, Lee. So his bow right now I think is at the 5.5 setting, which is about 26.5 inches of draw length. And I think he's shooting somewhere around 44 pounds of draw weight. Not too bad. Good shot. Good shooting, bud. How'd that feel?
Good.
Felt like it looks like the length is about right. How did the weight feel?
Good.
Okay, well, we'll just leave it at that. So we'll let him keep shooting at that, and you know, he might be ready for another half a crank on the limbs here before too long, just to add a little bit more draw weight, but he was shooting a pretty good group here at 10 yards, so we'll just kind of keep practicing at that. We'll see you on the next one.